were surprised about the podcasts. What kind of podcasts are you, like, do you have time to listen to podcasts? You have 4 children, you're a 2-time founder, you've got to juggle life and work.
I don't listen to podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you?
I used to when I had a commute.
Yeah.
Would throw on podcasts, but I haven't had a commute in a long time.
Is there any podcasts, I know it's a smaller percentage, but that you all would recommend listening to, that you all think is great? Yeah.
How I Built This with Guy Raz.
How I Built This?
Yeah, I've heard his. He's great.
Anybody else? Yeah.
It's called Anderson's Business Advisors. It's not me, though.
Oh, okay. I'm like, Anderson's Business Advisors.
The Tax Tuesday one. They talk about that stuff as well, but there's a few speakers that talk about entrepreneurship.
Huh. Anybody else from
Is
the
that our
back there?
tax
Yeah.
people? That's our tax people.
What is it called? Bill Kesh? Kesh. Oh, yes. And what's the name of the podcast? That is it? What does he talk about? Or who does he talk with?
AI, politics, he has really interesting people on. So they sort of talk more about their expertise.
Nice. Yeah. We're recording all this, so this is great. Yeah. Oh. YC. Did you know that?
Yeah, I'm sure.
The Game by Alex Hormozi.
The Game? Oh. There's a lot of stuff out there, and there's not that much time, which is why it is amazing when I look at what you've been doing and figuring out how the heck you've had enough time to do things. One of the things that we were talking about before, and one of the things that we're doing in this series this semester is talking about stories and how people tell stories. And I'm hoping later on you'll tell us a little bit about the story you used for your acquisition and now the story that you're using for funding. But before we even go there, can you tell us a little bit about your story? And I have some pictures that I can share too.
Yeah, sounds good. So, hi everyone, my name is Tracy Young. I have 4 young kids with my baby's daddy right here.
Co-creator.
We've built 2 companies together. We're still in the process of building our second startup. My parents are refugees of the Vietnam War. What else can I tell you? I guess I'm an entrepreneur, which is why you've invited me to speak here. I don't think of myself as that way.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking, and Michael Seibel of Y Combinator was talking, and he was like, "You have to have Tracy come and talk because she's." I feel like he might have said ballbuster or something, or just kick ass or something like that. It might have been what he used. And I think we're always looking for innovators and entrepreneurs. So.
Mm-hmm. What else? Oh, that is the boat my parents escaped Vietnam in. So they were, unfortunately, at the age when the war started, the Vietnam War started, they were just too young to leave because they lost all their talent, but they were like 10 years old or something when the war started. So they waited it out, grew up till their early 20s. They were married, they had a baby, and it was very clear to them it was a new world that they didn't want to live in. The war had ended by this point. And, they have vivid memories of just like children dying in front of them for no reason at all. And they just had this daughter and they were thinking, we have to get the fuck out of here. So they boarded this boat. They sold as much as they could. And these tickets were very expensive because it was illegal and you would, get executed or something.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can you all hear back in the back? Okay, just want to make sure.
We can always move forward like Victoria suggested, but I think this is as loud as I can go, so.
I'm just wondering if the mic is working enough. That's all. You talk in the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Is that better? Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
A response would be helpful, and it's on, right? It's the same. Is it on?
Oh, my bad. Was I supposed to do something?
Yes, you just turn it on. That's good. That's fantastic. It should be much louder.
Hi,
now.
can you guys hear me?
It's the same. Hold on, give it a second. Do you want to hold on? Can you hold on to it for a minute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better. Woo!
Okay, how do I do this? Maybe I zip up higher?
Sorry
Sorry.
about that. You're talking about something pretty important, and I just want to make
Can
sure
you guys
everyone
hear me? Oh shit, sorry. Okay, guys.
better.
My parents were refugees of the Vietnam War. They left Vietnam in their early 20s with their baby daughter, who was, I think, like a year old at the time, my older sister. They were on that boat that you just saw, and it was a miracle they survived that ride. A lot of their friends died. A lot of their friends tried to escape Vietnam this way. It was a very dangerous place. I don't think anyone leaves their family. They leave everything they've known for really destination nowhere. I mean, my parents were prepared to die at sea than to stay in Vietnam with their daughter. And I think that is true for, you know, the migration that we are seeing right now with all these people leaving their countries for really, again, destination nowhere. And I feel so much for them because when I read about their stories or I see migrants dying, I think like, those are my parents, right? And like their children could be like, they're me. And I feel a lot of empathy for them.
Knowing that that's how things happened, how do you think that's influenced you and how you approach things in life?
I just feel a lot of gratitude. I mean, it's like I was born in the right place at the right time. The best decision, the most important decision of my life wasn't made by me. You have to understand this. The most important decision of my life was when my parents boarded that boat. And I was able to be born in the US. And because I don't think the world, and maybe even our country today now with new leadership, but you know, it's just, this world isn't very kind to and supportive to women sometimes. But in the years that I got to build my career, it was so supportive of me, especially in Silicon Valley. And I don't think I would have gotten those opportunities in somewhere else.
It's interesting you talk about that. So, I mean, you're at Cal right now, and but I know when you started off, you were at Sac State, and I think you were. I actually don't know this for sure, but I think you were working the whole time. I have this weird feeling.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your time in college and what you were focused on?
Yes, so we had a very small class at a state school. I think there's only 25 of us in the graduating class. I was the only woman in the class. All my friends were guys in the engineering school with me. I was working in construction. I was the only woman on the job site. It was very male dominated, but everyone I worked with was very supportive of me, and I think I just lucked out. And you know, maybe there were some people who doubted my abilities or doubted my worth. I don't know, whatever it was, they had some prejudices in how I looked and that I had ovaries or something. But the vast majority of the people that were around me in university and in work didn't care that I was a girl, a woman. They just cared if I was going to work hard for them, with them.
I think you did work hard. I think it's interesting. I don't think this is working, actually. But I think when we walked over, you told me a story about an early failure. And then working hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's possible people can relate.
I was pretty good at math my entire life, up until sophomore year of college. I freaking failed Calc 2. And I sat there, I looked at my test score, I did the math, and it was very clear I didn't pass the class. And I could not believe it. I mean, I could believe it because I didn't understand Calc 2. I went back to my dorm room and I just sobbed, uncontrollably sobbing, feeling like my life was over. I really remember this. It's so funny to look back at it now because it was just Calc 2. I don't know how much time passed, whether it was hours or days or months. Not months, definitely not months, maybe like a week or two. But I just got over it and I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to take that stupid class again. And then I took it and I made sure I studied harder than I ever had before. And then I passed it with an A. And I remember distinctly when I looked at whatever, my printout, my report card or whatever, however I got it at that time. And I was like, oh, that's all I have to do. It's just like, I failed. I remember how low I felt, but then you just get over it. you just learn from it. And it was like, I needed to study harder, of course. I needed to actually do my homework. I needed to actually listen in class and maybe go to office hours. And then I passed it.
But it's still such a visceral
That was
memory.
Yeah, that was a core mememory for me.
Yeah, that's
That
interesting.
you can get past failure.
Let's talk about some like a success. I love I have this picture and I hope I can get to it. It's one of my favorite pictures I think ever. Hopefully I can get to it. Can you see yourself in your hard hat? What did you do when you graduated?
I worked on a hospital project in Vacaville. I helped build hospitals with like 500 other people.
And how many, yes, you were doing that. And what was your position there?
I was a project engineer.
Project engineer. Were you the only female project engineer?
No, but you know, we were the minority.
Fantastic. And how did that lead to you having a new idea for a business?
Yeah, so the idea for PlanGrid was our co-founder Ryan's idea. He's this type of guy who just has always known he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He grew up in Silicon Valley, and I think he was just very inspired by it. I thought in 2010 that we had missed tech. You know, you see Apple and just like all these amazing companies come out. You see their buildings come up as we grew up here, and I really thought we had missed tech, that it was past us, and you just have to work for one of these big tech companies. And Ryan had always knew he wanted to be a founder, and he just had so much conviction, and to a point where when he met me in university, he was also a construction management major, and then he would later get his master's from Stanford in civil engineering. But he was pitching me business ideas since I was 17 years old. I mean, all the time, all kinds of crazy ideas. And then in 2010, he pitched me the idea for PlanGrid. And I looked at him and I was like, that's actually a really good idea, Ryan. And he said, well, then we should build it.
Do you remember how he pitched it? You know, because we're trying to figure out best ways to tell a story to audiences. And we actually haven't heard how somebody gets them to be somebody on their team, a co-founder.
We then go through the saddest story in Silicon Valley, which is 2 domain experts, because his idea was construction software. He's like, look, Steve Jobs just announced his first generation iPad. He stood 2 hours in line to get it, and he's like, this is perfect for construction. It's the first time we can take a fully powered computer out on site, onto a job site, and with the battery life that was decent enough to, you can be outside for several hours. We should build software for this device. Neither of us were technical in the sense of software engineering, and we ended up convincing our very talented friends to build it with us.
Who did you convince?
We just convinced them that it was an obvious problem. Like, look how stupid, look at all this paper on the job site, should obviously be digitized. There's a huge market here. We walked them through the math, and we ended up building the company together.
When you say you built it, I guess you were bootstrapped. How did you fund it in the beginning?
We talked to a lot of investors who said no to us. It was still very exciting to be able to pitch investors, so I didn't mind. And we got the opportunity to pitch to Y Combinator. We just filled out their application, which for anyone who's interested in building companies, and I think maybe as former Y Combinator partners and as founders who have gone through Y Combinator twice now, we highly recommend just filling out the application. You don't have to join if you get in. It just helps you think through your problem and your solution.
I am curious in the class, has anybody, or just raise your hand if you filled out a Y Combinator application, regardless of whether you've been accepted? So at least 1, 2, and 1 not sure. Okay, interesting.
And then you apply again,
3.
because your thinking is going to change every 6 months.
So did you get accepted the first time you applied?
We did.
Why do you think you got accepted the first time you applied?
They had a request for startups at the time, which was something like, these mobile devices have just been announced. We think that it can actually help specific industries that we know nothing about, so come pitch us. And we just fit so nicely into their request for startups.
So
But it was also the founding team. We went and interviewed with Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston, and we did okay.
So did you, with what you interviewed with at Y Combinator, did you stick with that same business for PlanGrid, or were there pivots, or how did that work?
No, we nailed, it's like the best product market fit story in all of Silicon Valley, I think. We never pivoted. We're like, let's put blueprints on an iPad. Was really the original idea, and then we just built tools on top of that. And that's what we pitched Y Combinator. We were very dramatic about it. There were 4 co-founders of PlanGrid at the time. I'm very petite, and one of you guys, Antoine, was holding an iPad. Actually, all of you guys might have been holding an iPad at the time. And I, being the smallest one, carried these very big blueprints. And like a cartoon character walked in, I like threw it on the table so it'd like make this very dramatic, like loud noise in front of them. And then we said, we're gonna replace that with this. And that was our pitch. And that was our entire business, really.
Yeah, and how long did PlanGrid run?
In total?
Yeah.
From product to market?
Yeah.
So from product to market to the time we left?
Yeah.
7 years.
Interesting.
But then it went on, right? Because it was then a part of Autodesk. The product's still alive. It's just called something else.
How did that happen, the acquisition? Like, what's the story behind that, or how did you pitch them?
Yeah. So companies are bought, they are not sold. For those of you who are on the dating scene, it's like, if you don't care, you're just going to do a little bit better than someone who really, really wants like a date to happen, or someone who really, really wants a deal to happen. You can't want the deal to happen more than the person buying, or else it's just, they think it's a bad deal, right? We were competing with Autodesk at the time, and Autodesk is a public company, so they have earnings calls, so their CEO goes on record talking about their strategy and what they're going to invest in. And as someone competing with Autodesk, means I'm also reading transcripts every quarter, and I'm listening to the earnings call. And for 3 consecutive earnings call, the CEO had said, we are going to buy some company in construction. Well, at the time in 2017, 2018, there's only like 3 companies that would make sense for Autodesk to buy. It was us and like 2 others, really just 1 other, and then a smaller company. And so for 9 months, I was waiting for a call from them. And that call came, and we met with them. And it's very much like an investor pitch. It's really strange because you're also talking to your you're talking to your competitors, and you're preparing this deck to show how great you are and how awesome your company is, including your financials and like your secret sauce. So it's very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, you're going back to the office, and none of the team can know these conversations are happening.
Wow.
Because I'm also looking at the team. It's like, all right, let's go and like let's outsell Autodesk. Like, we're building PlanGrid. We're an independent company, and the team really thought I was going to take the company public at that time. And so, if we sell the company, that's in direct. That just is like a completely alternate reality, right? But as my job as founder and CEO of the company, I had to make sure that I was maximizing all options, and one of the options for a liquidity event would be selling our company to our competitor.
Wow. So how do you keep that quiet? Like, it's just interesting that, people thought you were IPOing, but yet you're also having, conversations with Autodesk. How do you separate that?
It was really hard, but we did it. You were in the fold, what we called in the fold, of course. By that point, there's only 2 founders left at the company, and you were leading engineering at the time. You were leading product at the time. Was I leading engineering? I was leading engineering. It's funny, Oh, I hired Samir. So you are a founder long enough at a startup, and you get the privilege to lead like everything in the company. And the goal is to replace yourself. And at that time, we had an engineering leader leave, so I ended up taking over engineering, which was like the last department that I hadn't led before. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. But our CFO was the only person that was in the fold. Me, Ralph, and our CFO.
Yeah.
And he was the one who taught us all of this. He had gone through several acquisitions before, and he's like, the team cannot know because all they're going to be asking you is the deal done yet, instead of doing their jobs.
Wow. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did you announce it when it was done? How did you know it was done? Is that a weird way to
Oh yeah, it was really weird. Were you in that room?
Yeah, I stalled for you.
Yes, so we knew when, we had an estimate of when all, like the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted on the legal docs, and it's like thousands of pages of legal docs to buy a company of our size. And there's like 14 lawyers involved. And we knew it was gonna get done on this certain day on December 19th. And I had called an all hands. And it was like an off day. It wasn't normally our day would have an all hands. It was a special edition all hands. And the team, I thought we knew the timing, but the team had gathered up like this. And there was a mic on stage, and you, I guess, told math jokes? Yeah. Okay, you told math jokes. I was still with the lawyers in a conference room.
You told math jokes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's a mathematician.
Yeah.
And then the 14 lawyers, one of them at some point says, all right, it's done. And then someone else is like, woo. It's so awkward. And my CFO looked at me, he's like, you gotta announce it to the team.
We'd wait for the press, it hit press. The public announcement.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, we had to wait for the public announcement to hit before we could tell the team.
Okay, so I had to wait for something else. So the lawyers were like, gave the thumbs up, then comms gave a thumbs up. And then I went down to the team, I was so nervous because I did not know how they would take it. And I just spat it out. I was like, all right, we sold to Autodesk for $875 million.
That's great. And how
I was so
how did
nervous.
everybody take it?
People were in shock. There was a delay to the clap, the first clap. And then the clap kept going, because when everyone just sort of, because everyone was shareholders of the company, right? Then you start seeing people clapping, and they're clearly doing math in their head.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then the people who did the math and realized they could, like, whatever, take care of their families and, like, buy a house, they were, like, really, really excited, you know?
That's fantastic. Did everybody have, like 500 employees, did everybody have stock, basically, have a stake? That's fantastic. Well, then, like, things changed totally, and suddenly you are in a startup or a company within a larger company, and you got to figure out your path. And I think that was a little bit funky. I think you said that you had no title, or you're, you know, basically when you're at Autodesk, because when you get acquired, you usually
They gave me a vice president title, but there's nothing following it. So it meant that I didn't have a real job there.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the CEO staff meeting, and this is very prestigious at Autodesk because there's only, I don't know, like 50 people with VP titles. And this person comes up to me and they're like, you must be the youngest vice president in the history of the company. I was like, I'm not. I got acquired in as a founder. I'm not a career VP here.
Wow.
But you know, that's how big, you know, because for that person, it was a big deal for them to get to that title.
When you put yourself back in that position, if you can think about that, as a while ago, did you, I think you actually thought, I guess you did think you would stay at Autodesk, but like what was it that, like, what was going on in your life that kind of was keeping you going, that you were, like, you seemed fairly goal-oriented, like what was the next thing you were thinking would make sense for you?
While I was there?
Yeah.
We really wanted to make sure our team was taken care of, and so it took a bit of work because at the time Autodesk had acquired 4 startups. We were the biggest one. And I just wanted to, and when you acquire 4 startups and form them into one business unit, the construction unit, you have to merge everything. So not only back office systems, not only like HR policies, but also the people integration. So the product people are looking at each other, and there's like 4 heads of product. Well, who's the head of product for this new business group, right? Same thing for marketing, same thing for sales, same thing for engineering. And so we had to help sort all of that out. And that was our mission, by the way, was integration for the business unit. So we accelerated that. I think the hardest part about us being there was we were so used to making decisions. I mean, we could make a decision like over lunch, like let's just change this completely, right? This is the right thing to do. Suddenly to going to scheduling time with 5 heads of departments, explaining to them the problem, explaining to them why this should be the solution, and then they're like, all right, let's meet again in like 5 months, and then we can talk more about it. And so it just felt like we couldn't do anything. I couldn't sneeze without asking permission from 5 people. And that was really hard, going from founders to working for a public company. And there's reasons for that, right? Like they have a stock market price to look after. They have 10,000 employees and shareholders and like whoever owns their stock. They've got to do earnings calls with analysts every 3 months, and they have to show all their numbers. So you can't be as courageous. You have to be stable as a public company. Whereas a startup, you're just trying to run as fast as you can and not die.
So interestingly, speaking of running as fast as you can and not dying, you had 4 children. And then you all, I'm kind of skipping over Y Combinator for a minute, but then you all did another startup. I'm curious how that came about. If you could share how that happened after you have like incredible success. What is it in your blood that makes you be like, another startup?
I think we're people that always needs a project to work on, and we just decided it was going to be another startup. And it was a fun project until Y Combinator learned about it, and then our other investor, Gary Tan, learned about it.
What was the project?
Then I think we had a name, TigerEye, and core values, and a list of people we wanted to work with again before we even had an idea. It was that was never a real company.
Ralph just said a note-taking app.
Yeah, note-taking app. So we actually didn't have. We knew we were going to build business software if we did it again, and our old investors came to us, and they basically said, "We'll give you a total of $35 million to build it." And it was very hard for us to say no, but at that time, I remember thinking, we have to consider no, because we just got out of a startup, and that was a little bit hard, and we finally got to exit a company, and we have these young kids, and we were really flattered that our investors, our old investors, wanted to invest in us again at some crazy valuation and give us a ton of money to build this thing that didn't exist.
How does that happen? How do you maintain the relationships with those investors? Like,
We were working for one of them at the time. So we were working for Y Combinator.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to keep working. And we're like, no, we're going to build a startup. At that point, Ralph was working on a note-taking app. And he was really just checking out new technologies, right? Just a new stack of technologies and evaluating a bunch of stuff. We just had Rumi. So I was postpartum with our third. But I had agreed that like we would of course work on a startup again, but it'll be fun this time. It'll be like chill this time. We're not going to be crazy about a startup. We're going to like work at a slower pace. And that was true until we took the investment, because now there are board meetings. Now there are expectations for a return. Now there are revenue targets, and it becomes it can be not fun in a way.
So at that point, you didn't feel like you had to pitch anybody because your investors were pitching you in a weird way.
You guys should totally build another company, take what you've learned, all those mistakes that you're frustrated about, just go build a better company. And here's some money. Yeah, it was really hard for us to say no to that, so we didn't.
And so then TigerEye became not the note-taking app, but a business. I don't know. How would you say it? What's your tagline?
Our business today is modern business intelligence for go-to-market teams. So we're trying to replace Looker, if you're familiar with that
Looker.
product.
And so they'd be your competition. Have they looked at, based on what happened with Autodesk? Are there any conversations about merging or being acquired or acquiring them?
No.
Would you ever consider that?
Would I consider an acquisition again?
Yeah.
I think our jobs is to, we like have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors and our team.
Yeah.
And so we have to make, if the numbers make sense, it is something we have to consider.
So you built PlanGrid up, and at the end, if I remember correctly, you had about 500 employees?
Yeah,
Where is TigerEye now?
30.
At 30. What do you see as next for TigerEye?
We would like to sell a lot more TigerEye to companies.
And so it's a B2B sale,
Yeah,
enterprise software sale.
yeah.
How do you start to go about telling the story?
Yeah, the story is a lot harder. I think with mobile, the story was, hey, you were buying on-prem software before, so just don't buy that. Now buy cloud-based mobile software. That was a pretty easy story to tell. It's like, the world's changed. On-prem software is super expensive. You don't want to run your own servers. You want to host it in the cloud. You want to make it available on these mobile devices. That is the future. You should be doing this, or else you're just going to be left behind. The pitch today is much harder, because the pitch today is, look at all these people you have at your company. Well, some of them you straight up don't need, because there's AI now. You don't need very talented data scientists to build your ETL pipeline and do data modeling, and then just make graphs for the sales and marketing team. Like, that's a complete waste of their talent. They should be building product for your customers. And so the pitch is like, you don't need that team. You just hire TigerEye. And we just do all of that. So it's a much, much harder sell, because sometimes the person in the room is the person's, their complexity at the company and all of the spreadsheets that they run is their job stability.
What do you think is your most successful sale so far for TigerEye?
The most successful sales are usually startups. Startups that don't have this team yet. They haven't hired a bunch of analysts at their company. They don't have a data team yet. There's like 1 or 2 people. And we tell them we can come in and we can supercharge your team.
How do the financials work?
How do the financials work?
Yeah, I mean, how do they then pay a monthly, or is it a?
It's still subscription.
Okay, interesting. And so you're at 30 now. You're fairly goal-oriented. How much are you looking to grow? Like, what's the next big step? Is it getting more funding? Is it growth from customers?
In terms of people, it's actually a really nice size.
Yeah.
I think, like, I know everyone's names, right? I know it's actually most of the team we've worked with before at our last company. I think once there's like someone reports to either of us right now, and maybe there's like one more degree, but once you get bigger, you're like 4 levels removed from the front line. And then the bigger you get, you're like 8 levels removed, like at my last company. And it's just much harder to communicate. Like, you have to be very intentional about messages you want to tell the team, and like strategy you want to tell the team. Whereas we can just talk openly with the whole team today. And it's like really comfortable, and it's really nice. And everyone's really talented. I mean, you look at it, like, there's so many. Most of the team is very, very experienced, because again, this is like our old crew. And so we would like to just be able to grow the company without significantly adding more to the payroll.
It's so refreshing to hear you talk about the relationships that you have, and the fact that these people that you work with at PlanGrid are still people that you work with. And it seems like you invest you invest in your people, the people that are around you a lot. I talked a little bit earlier about kind of an interview question, how you'd answer it, and like, tell me about yourself. But I am curious, what do you ask others when you are kind of interviewing, if you're deciding whether you want them to go on this journey with you of starting a new company?
So I get the privilege of working with people who have worked with me before. So I didn't have to interview the people who work for me today. I just knew they're good, and I just like, hey, I'm building this thing. Please come join us. Please quit your very high-paying job where you manage a lot of people and just come back and just be like an IC here. But when I do get to interview someone for the company, by this point, it's like a back-end engineer that's met like 8 different people at the company, and everyone's like, yes, we want them on the team. So I'm in selling mode. But it's also important for me to really get to know the person in a short period of time. So my favorite question to ask during an interview is just tell me about yourself. Tell me what you learned from your mom and dad. And it goes so many different directions, and what I get is an opportunity to just stare at them. And I love staring at people when they're talking. And then I get to really, in a short amount of time, get to know them as best as I can.
In meeting so many different people, I am curious to know what was the most endearing thing you've heard from somebody?
Oh man, there's been so many times where someone just starts breaking down and crying because they're either so proud about their parents, or because their parents had made such a big sacrifice for their life, or it's just, whatever it might be, that it's like that moment where they have the courage to show me that vulnerability is like a really powerful moment for me. Because it's so human, but we so often don't allow ourselves to be human.
Yeah. There are 2 things that really struck me from our conversations before in terms of being human. I'd ask, like, what you and Ralph have invested in a lot of companies, and in fact, when you're at Y Combinator, you also were investing not only time but also money. And one of the things that I asked was like, well, what makes you want to invest in somebody? And you had an interesting answer. I don't know if you recall what you had said. What would make you invest in an idea?
2 things for me, and we're a team as investors also, so I leave all of the technical qualifications and checking to Ralph. I like to just understand why they're working on what they're working on,
I just
like
thought
why
that's
it's important to
yeah.
them, and whether I believe that this product is going to be good for the world. I remember at Y Combinator, we met, this is my batch, not yours, we met a company that was making so much money, but they were essentially online gambling. And I remember one of my partners, one of the group partners there was like, oh, we should invest, this is like a great deal for us. Look at their growth rates. It's like, this is just like, the world is not going to be better with this online, like they're just preying on people who are addicted to gambling, right? Like, no, thank you. I don't care how much money, I don't care if they're printing money, I'm not going to be a part of that, right? And so for me, it's, do I think your product is going to move the world forward, and do I agree with it or like it, or would I use it? And then 2, do I think you're going to be the person who's going to have the grit and gumption to do this for the next 10, 20 years? If you're really lucky, it's going to be 50 years of your life.
There's something, I put this up here because this focus on giving back or doing something that's good or kind, maybe it's something that started with your parents also, I don't know, but you've also made this big pledge, and that is, I think, what this is about, the 1% pledge.
Yeah, Pledge 1% is a nonprofit organization. Who are the big companies that have pledged? Twilio has pledged 1%, Atlassian has pledged 1%, so there's different ways to pledge 1%. It's like 1% of your time, 1% of your future profits, 1% of your equity. I think they pledge, these 2 companies have pledged also. They're donating a lot every year to charity. At our stage, it's very easy to pledge 1% because our shares are worth nothing. There's not this huge board. I remember when I wanted to pledge 1% at PlanGrid, my board, the investors were very clear. We are not giving 1% up. That's 1%. And it's like, whatever, it's like $1 out of 100 if we make $100, right? Who cares about that dollar? Like, nope, you are not pledging 1%, we're voting against this, right? So it was one of the things we wanted to do, and it was so easy to do it at the start of this company because there's nothing. It's like, you know, went to the board, which is Gary Tan, it's like, let's just pledge 1%. He was like, all right, let's do it. And then that was it.
I hope that it will,
Yeah.
it'll be 1% of quite a lot. I appreciate that you kind of talked through this. I've left all sorts of questions out from Y Combinator because I think that also might be interesting to the students from Tracy's background, but I think it'd be really interesting if we shift over, and actually I shift seats with Ralph, who you haven't met yet. And Ralph, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind, let's see, we know that you tell math jokes, which I think is ironic, because how funny can math be? But maybe you'd lead off with a math joke. We know that you've been the Chief Technology Officer, and now I know that you're working in ballistics. Very fascinating background, but I'm wondering if you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I'll open it up to the students for you all to introduce yourself and ask questions. And while we have some tech challenges, I think, with mics, do we have a mic? Well, we won't, okay, does that mic work? Okay, fantastic. So we have one mic that works, and hopefully we'll have one Ralph that works, and I'll switch places with you. And we'll go to our Q&A. We'll do the old school. I always think of this as like the Tom Jones microphone. Would you mind introducing yourself, co-creator?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ralph Goody, co-founder and CTO of TigerEye. I've worked with Tracy on the last two companies, as mentioned. My background's mathematics. I will save you all from a math joke, and we'll just get to the Q&A faster. So that's just a little bit of background on myself. It's nice to be here with you all.
Oh, sorry. We're still trying to do this AV, but if you all have questions, let me know, and I'll come with this microphone. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, lazy. Let me start in the front, and we'll go back. Introduce yourself.
Hi.
And say it loud because that mic is just for the recording, but not for the students.
Sounds good. I'm Richard. I'm going to give you guys an easy one to start with. How'd you meet? How'd you go from strangers to not strangers?
We met at a cello concert at a punk venue in San Francisco called The Independent. The artist was called Zoe Keating, and she played cello like looped in on itself. It was really cool. I attempted to buy Tracy a drink, and she turned me down like, I think about twice. I think on the third time I was lucky enough to get her painter's card. She's an artist, and she's just like, here, just call me on my painter card. So I had her email address and a piece of her art with me.
Ralph's perseverance was very impressive to me, that this random dude would keep trying to talk to me after a hard no, I'm not talking to you, you don't buy me a drink, I don't want to talk to you. And the third try was really impressive. So the rest is history.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Josh, and my question is, what is the best approach to talk to your customers and learn more about them, especially when there's all these different subgroups? You can have different customers that are in different parts of your like onboarding funnel or marketing funnel or whatever, and they all have all these different characteristics, and the logs and data that you might have is a giant mess. What is the best way to like segment these subgroups and then learn from them so that you can like then take action based off of what you learned and increase retention or whatever your goal is?
Well, firstly, you talk to as many of them as you can, and especially anyone who's giving you time. You want to prioritize, and not just like, you know, there's what we call tire kickers who are just, they love entrepreneurs, they love founders, they want to talk to engineers, but they're just not in like a buying position. You sort of want to get rid of them. You want to talk to someone who is really doing real work and has a budget and has a real problem. And then I would just pick a lane. I mean, it sounds like there's like lots of different industries that could be using your thing. Just pick one. If there's like a lot of people you know, even if it's, you know, 1 versus 3. Direct to consumer.
Sorry, we've got a question back here. It's hard to hear.
Oh, I said, she was kind of answering the question, but under the impression that I was asking her B2B context, but it's more B2C, and I think that could be different because I guess when it's enterprise, like you want to be talking to decision makers, not just like
Yeah.
someone who just wants to talk to you.
You know, with our last company, PlanGrid, there was a direct-to-consumer aspect of the business, because there's a bunch of people who were finding us on the App Store and would start paying us, and we had never had any conversations with them. I do think it's okay to try to get them on the phone if you have their number or email, and just ask them if they will give you 20 minutes of your time. You're one of the co-founders, one of the founders of this thing. Will you just give me 15 minutes? If it's not 20 minutes, will you give me 15 minutes? I just have a few quick questions for you. And try to absorb and learn. And really what you're trying to get to is what problem is so bad that they're willing to pay you money for.
Over here, and you all, we have the microphone working over here. If you all want to line up over here, you're welcome to. Go ahead.
Hey. Is it working? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the time today. My name is Joel, and I'm a here from UC. I actually have two questions for both of you. The first one is, as a company operating the application layer, how are you approaching the decision between like post-training or fine-tuning open source models versus just focusing on like system design and just replacing the models as better ones came out? And the second one is, with this developer tools landscape that's always evolving and changing, how are you approaching tech stack decisions like frameworks like LangChain, LangGraph, building your own from scratch, or using like vector databases? So those are the two questions. Thank you.
I think there's a real opportunity now for people not to be with frontier models that were released yesterday. I think there's a real opportunity for folks to understand the capabilities of models that might have been out for a few months, which, you know, seems dated nowadays. I like that you said open source, you know, even though for most of our models that we're most successful with, they're all unfortunately closed source provided models, you know, because it's so much easier to work with them than the open source alternatives. I personally love open source models. I think they're really fun. I think that if you've got so much data that you can actually do some form of distillation of open source models, it's like possibly one of the most cool and like futuristic ways to bring down cost and give high quality answers. Unfortunately, for a lot, like for startups, you know, mostly that scale of data is inaccessible. Probably easier just to go with Anthropic and OpenAI. That's the first part of your question. The second part of your question, man, there's a lot of technologies and techniques you can use around the architecture right now. And I got this advice, I'm gonna repeat advice I got from somewhere else. So I got this advice from Brett Taylor, who's actually is the head of OpenAI's board, and he's doing another AI company called Sierra. It's really cool. You can get really far with just prompt engineering and RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Just those two technologies get you like a long, long way. And they're easy to explain and talk about. Fine-tuning gets a little confusing for people. Like the term's pretty clear, but what it actually means gets a bit lost. And also, I still think you need a little too much data to make fine-tuning really available nowadays. I mean, I think to do RAG, you have to have a vector database, but this stuff's so cheap to do nowadays. Most people should probably just use LangChain. However, I do think that when you really look at the code of LangChain, it's just doing string interpolation and it's not providing very much value at all. But it can help you kind of get off the ground, kind of run with it. So we use LangChain, but we'll probably just replace it any day now. We don't use it. We actually had to replace LangChain for most of the in-depth. Like if you're trying to really use a model, LangChain kind of, the interface normalizes it, which is great, it's quick, but it also takes away some of the advantages of really being able to work with some of the better APIs from those models. Hope that answers your question. No problem.
I'm going to give you this also. Oh, no, you do have one. Okay, never mind.
I got it.
Yeah, other questions? Oh, all in the front. Do you all want to, would you all, since you are in the front, come back and you can use the microphone, we can hear you a little bit better? And it'd be great if you could introduce yourself.
I'm Trent. I'm a junior at each Oregon. My question for y'all is how do you balance work and your relationship with what you're values?
Such a good question. I'll start and then you can add here. We have heavily protected family and kid time, and then we have heavily protected work time. And the way that looks like is we have a very regimented schedule. I feel like our kids eat, sleep, shit at the same time every day, and it's helpful. Because our kids are young enough where we are still wiping 3 butts right now. They're gonna grow up and then wipe their own butts at some point. What else helps? We ask for, if it's off hours, like it's family time, and we want to talk about work, we do ask each other for permission. It's like, hey, I've got this work thing that won't leave my mind. Can we talk about it? More often than not, we'll say like, yeah, no problem. Or it's like, look, it's been a rough night. I can't handle that right now. Talk to me tomorrow during work time. How about you?
I think that's the best. That's the best suggestion. Is like the boundaries. Hard boundaries are really helpful in theory, but if you're working with a loved one, hard boundaries are actually really difficult to maintain and can be a little confrontational. Actually, it's like, well, no, it's after 8. Like, don't talk to me about work. You know, you just started a fight. How did you do that? So, like, being kind of loose on the boundaries has been really helpful. You know, you just got to figure out what you do for fun in life eventually. And I guess I have fun building startups with my like partner, you know, and that's my fun. And you got to know that. Like, what are you doing for enjoyment in life? What's fun for you? What makes you happy? And this makes me happy. And you know, some things that have to, you know, you got to like give up other things. Maybe I'm not going to be VP of engineering for some cool, fast-growing startup because I much more prefer working with my wife. But being able to like set those boundaries and work together and respect them and keep updating them probably is the other thing to mention. Every new child's a new way to like have a boundary. Every new stage in life is a new way to like set a new boundary or kind of release an old one that doesn't really need to be there anymore. Yeah, good question.
Now that we have kids, we are actually teaching them to do things that we love. Like we love hiking. Our first date, we hiked.
Yeah.
And now we're teaching the kids and we're training them to hike. Even our 3-year-old was able to hike 3 miles just last weekend, which was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious about something. Vicky, instructor, actually, here it is. So you all have started 2 companies together. You started in the earlier 2000s. You've seen a lot of companies come and go. You worked at Y Combinator. I think you said you were in 2 different areas of Y Combinator as partners. Here we have a class of 200 plus, trying to figure out what the heck they want to do in life, thinking they're interested in being entrepreneurs. What areas do you think there are still opportunities to do something big, based on your experience? Are there any holes that still need to be filled, things that could still be done better that you think that it's easier to work on?
I'll take a quick cut on this one. Part of our product really does relieve the need for internal data science around sales and marketing. It's a pretty unfulfilling job from the folks I've worked with and from my own work with it. It's fulfilling to build a business around it, but actually doing the job, like you have to work tickets, just to be clear. Like you actually have to like, you know, yeah, you're a service. The sales manager's like, I want to see like EMEA versus APAC growth rate year over year. And they could ask you something stupid and you don't get to argue back, right? Like you're actually just producing work for somebody else, which is uninspiring and not a great job, especially for people that have their masters and, you know, highly educated folks. I think the opportunity for data science is around, obviously, the training material. Like how are AIs trained right now? It's an amazing amount of data, both to organize, to manage, to efficiently distribute. There's a lot of opportunities, I think, in data. There's a lot of opportunities in mathematics. Those are 2 of my favorite places. I like math. See my math sweater over there. I like that. You know, mathematics is the core of, you know, pretty much all computer science, all AI. It's all just math. So I always find math just to be like, if you don't know where to go, like mathematics, that's the place to be. But outside of that, final note, I think hard, like if you're solving a real problem in life, right? Like construction, I think we solved real problems there. There's a lot of real problems still in the world. Maybe this is like, you know, fire prevention, identifying fires. There's a few, I mean, it's funnily enough, the best thing for fire prevention was an educational app. What was that app called? Like Sentry or something like that? Who remembers that? From when the LA fires were going, there was like a startup that did a really, really good app. Watch Alert. Yeah, Fire Watch or some shit. Watch, come on. Yeah, there we go. I mean, this was like, It really helps with fires. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people trying to make the world a better place and like specializing in something. For instance, you know, oceans, there's a lot of scientists around that trying to make sure we don't lose all our fish, those types of things. AI really could help there, but you actually have to understand the domain problem, you know? So I always think sciences in general are really interesting. What about you, Tracy?
I think if you're working and paying attention at all, there are so many inefficiencies, there's so many problems in our world, there's problems everywhere if you pay close attention, and I think the reason we were able to build such a successful company was just because Brian and I were working in construction long enough to be dangerous. We were both in the field for 4 years to see that there was this huge problem with information flow because it was all in paper. We were building 2 completely separate projects. He was building roads, I was building hospital, and we were experiencing the same problem. And the problem was known to everyone in construction. We were just the first ones who decided to try to build something to solve it. And I really think problems exist everywhere. And there's solutions that have not been drummed up yet because people are so stuck in status quo. And so if I have any advice for all of you, it's to not stand for the status quo if it sucks. If it sucks so bad that it annoys you, maybe you should go build something and change it. Maybe there's a huge business there.
This is often kind of our last questions that we have. I know those students will kind of come up and talk to you after. Why don't you ask the last question?
Yes, sure.
Hi, thanks for coming on. My name is Max. I'm graduating from my third grade now. Tracy, maybe you can bond a little bit. I actually turned for our company, Kaya. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I know you, Kaya.
So I also wore the hard hat. I understand that kind of process. And when I went into the room with the first internship, I went with a friend and a student, and we thought that we were going to change the company. We were the first to have essentially ever. And we came in with these crazy ideas. They were on like gold therapy software that they had for 30 years. Got presented these ideas and they thought we were like super crazy. Didn't listen to us. We tried everything and essentially couldn't convince them about nothing. I was just curious about, since you guys kind of changed the construction industry, how do you think about doing that? I know like iPads are new at the time, and mobile devices are new.
The good news is those people who told you were crazy and you're out of your mind trying to replace their ERP system and they're like, I'm going to go to my grave with my ERP system, even though it sucks. They're going to retire soon. They're going to die in the next few decades. You guys will be making decisions. You guys will have budgets and buying power. This is why I was so interested in that question, because I want to know how you guys consume information, because you're coming into the workforce. It's nice to just cast the net wide, because you're going to bump into someone who, and I hate being ageist here, but there might be like a millennial who just took over their lumberjack company and then is like, I hate our ERP system. I want someone to build something. You know, you just have to talk to enough people. You're going to find someone who's into what your ideas are, right? It just requires a lot more talking. So I would recommend doing that.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, like, if you were talking to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
It's a good ending question. I have to think about it. Can you answer yours first?
Make sure you go to that punk concert and see that cello thing. And then make sure you talk to that woman 3 times.
Oh, that's sweet. I would tell myself, I know what I would tell myself. I would say, put on sunscreen every single day, not just on your face, but on your neck in this region. Sorry, this is like serious advice, especially for people who care about skincare and not getting wrinkles. Put on sunscreen. For you too, because you got skin cancer. Let's see, what else would I tell myself? I would tell myself that life is short and to Like there's just not that much time that most of us get here. Like even if we are able to live the entire span of our lives, there's very little time. And as 40-year-olds telling you this, I cannot believe, like I remember sitting where you are, not at this university, I went to state school, but I remember sitting at university. It's a UC, it's different. It's better.
Boundaries.
And then just 20 years went by. It just like evaporated in front of me. I mean, we obviously have done a lot in the last 20 years, but it went by really fast. And by the time you get to your 40s, time moves faster. And then the other weird thing is bad things happen, your friends start dropping like flies. Like that happens too.
So, with all that, I think it's important to cherish the connections that you're able to make, and be aware and grateful for them. And so I know that people will come up and talk to you all afterwards. Ralph and Tracy, I want to thank you both. I'll put our code up and we'll give you feedback tomorrow. But spending these hours with us this afternoon has been phenomenal. Thank you all
Thanks for having
very
us.
much.
Thank you all.